Hello and welcome to another edition of the RotorHub International Podcast, and that's presented by me, Gideon Ewers. I'm the editor of RotorHub International. Now today we're actually on the road at the North Weald base of the Essex and Hertfordshire Air Ambulance, and with me today is none other than Bill Long, who's the Aviation Director for the Air Ambulance charity, right in the field here because just as we were starting the recording, the crew's got a notice and actually scrambling to an incident as we speak, going out of the crew room next door from where we are. And I think that's to an incident in Broxbourne, which I think, Bill, am I right, is in the southeastern part of Hertfordshire?
Yes, that's right, absolutely.
What's the sort of flying time from here for that?
Well, they're going to be there probably within the next 10 minutes or so after they've launched, and you can hear a little bit of preparation going on next door as the pilots have already walked out to the aircraft and the crews are just getting themselves ready for the incident itself. And I always find that fascinating to hear the level of excitement as they go to a job, because even though this is probably the worst day of somebody's life, they're there to go and help them, and this is the whole purpose of this operation.
Yeah, that comes down to whenever. Certainly, it's something I'll often say to anyone I happen to be with. If I'm out on the boat with my wife and the Coast Guard helicopter goes by, or we're out walking and air ambulance goes by, it's like, well, somebody's having a really bad day, but happily for them, help is at hand. And actually, looking off to out of the window, there's a fantastic view, I have to say, in the operations office here at the Essex and Hertfordshire Air Ambulance. Looking out the west, I guess that's more or less the Broxbourne direction. There's a bit of weather coming in. But anyway, Bill, the reason I'm here is it's kind of a momentous day for you guys, isn't it? With the awarding of an AOC, Air Operator Certificate.
Yes, this is a celebration day. We were actually awarded the certificate on the 23rd of December last year, and our first operating day was actually Christmas Day. Really auspicious. And you may have met our chief pilot, Andy Morehouse, who was the captain of the aircraft on that day, and James Pusey was the co-pilot, who's one of our captains over at Earls Coombe. It's an incredible thing. There's been a huge amount of hard work to go into it. I joined the organisation in September 24 with the purpose of getting the AOC over the line. But clearly it's been a real team effort. We've used someone called Ian Rose, who's a very experienced consultant who helped Thames Valley get their air operating certificate. They were a charity before us, who managed to achieve that aim 2 years before us. But theirs was a little bit different to ours because we use a multi-crew project, and we've got a multi-crew operation. We also fly at night using NVIS, and we have instrument ratings as well. So our operation is a little bit more complex than theirs. And we cover 5 million people in Essex and Hertfordshire, and out of 2 bases, here where we are at North Weald and the other one over at Earls Coombe. And I'm hugely grateful to the people of Essex and Herts because we don't get any government funding at all, and we managed to run these 2 £11 million helicopters 365 days a year. And
I think that's one of the interesting things. A lot of our listeners are in other parts of the world, and it is one of the things that I think is quite unique in the air ambulance landscape. The model here in the UK, which is the vast majority, of course, as you say, are funded by public subscription, and that's a big difference that the communities make for their own health provision or care provision.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we're very lucky. We've got a really strong totem around which we can do fundraising, which is the helicopter, and it raises people's awareness very well because our aircraft are coloured red and yellow, and so they're very distinctive when they fly over the top. But the fundraising team put a huge amount of effort in, and the people are so generous.
Let's go back then. Let's talking about the AOC. Let's think about that in the way, because a lot of your colleagues in the charity air ambulance space have a solution where they contract out to operators like Gamma or Babcock for the flight operations side and managing that. What was the impetus for seeking that AOC? Because they're not easy to get, but what drove drove you to go down that route?
I'm very, very lucky. The charity started in 1997, and I think there's a maturity that comes with operating with an organisation. You know, we originally, I think, had Babcock and Bond, and then went across to Specialist Aviation Services and ended up with Gamma. And as you learn more about what needs to happen, you start to see the fact that you could actually gain greater control of what you're doing. And this is the thing that our trustees decided about 5 years ago or 3 years ago, I can't remember exactly which, that they wanted to give us more control over what we were doing. And so having an AOC gives us that control by us managing our own operations manual and forming the operation to exactly fit what we need. And then we've got the flexibility to change it if we need to. Gamma were a great partner, but they were serving Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Dorset and Somerset, Cornwall at one point as well. And so if we wanted to change the operation, the operations manual had to reflect that. And then you're applying that to everybody else as well. So by having our own operation, we can really tailor what we want to do. And so those three elements, and I haven't mentioned the third element yet, of control, flexibility, and then I was really grateful to the trustees because they said, and the least important is cost saving. But we believe that we're probably saving about 10%. And there's been a huge amount of effort gone into it. And I'm hugely grateful to the team that I've had who've put the effort in. It's been late nights, arguments, all sorts of things to go on to create what we've got now. And there's still a long way to go. You know, we've got our final audit post AOC at the end of June. And looking up on the board here, you can see I've got a green P sign that drivers have when they pass their driving test. And what I've said to people in the past, before we had our AOC, we were on L plates. And now that we've got the AOC, we're on P plates. And hopefully after the audit in June, we can throw the P plates away.
You can throw away those P plates.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that process, that acquisition of the AOC. What steps did you have to look at? Did you start from a datum point of examining what Gamma, for example, were doing for you, and then build out from there, or it was a case of no, let's just actually look at what our mission looks like and build the AOC from that?
That was the starting point: is what are we doing and what do we want to do? And so therefore we then built around that concept. We actually drew experience from other people. You know, as I've mentioned, our consultant Ian Rose, he had helped Thames Valley get their AOC. So that was a really important element to reduce the amount of time that it took, plus avoid mistakes by having his experience on board. However, it was really important to recognise the fact that we needed to raise awareness of aviation and build a culture. We had to have all the right manuals in place: safety manuals, compliance monitoring manuals, ground operations manuals. The CAA is so much more focusing on ground operations now. You know, and what we've been able to do is to really gear up the quality of what we're doing. And so, you know, for example, we've instituted JIG 4 regulations around fuel. And why have we done that? Because we just want to get better and we want to learn. And so I'm really confident about where we're at the moment, and the focus that the pilots have got now, and they're so happy to be working for us and to be integrated into the charity team. It's really wonderful to see. You know, the collaboration between the clinicians, the fundraisers, and the pilots is wonderful.
That's one of those interesting things. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is that, if you will, I guess, triangle of operation in this kind of organisation where you have the fundraising activity, then you have the clinicians. You know, getting them there is the whole point of the exercise, and then of course the pilots as well. Yeah. You and I are naturally biased and would think pilots are most important, but really, let's face it, without clinicians, what's the point? And without funds, nobody's going anywhere. Yeah.
And I would say that I've got a commercial background. This is the first time I've worked for a charity. And the way that I look at it is core business for the organisation is fundraising.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Well, we as the aviation department can support that. We're using our helicopters and our pilots. But without the clinicians, it's just a flying club.
Yeah.
And the purpose, you know, shareholder value that we're providing is to put the clinicians out as quickly as we possibly can in a place that they need to go to. And quite often, Essex and Hertfordshire have got rural areas, and we will support rural communities who are difficult to get to.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the interesting things about the geographical space of this part of the country. You have, on the one hand, quite sort of urban, congested areas where surface transport may be an issue, and then equally rural areas, quite the extreme opposite in farming communities and rural areas, out to the north of both counties.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's a three-dimensional space that we work in, and we've got quite a lot of air traffic around. We've got Stansted close by, we've got City, we've got Heathrow. There's the big conurbation of London to the south of us, and that difference. I mean, one of the advantages that we've got, having employed our own pilots now, is that we've been able to secure our operation, and we've already been doing cross-border operations, helping our colleagues in Kent. Some of our teams went down to Dover recently, and then also East Anglian Air Ambulance. We've been able to fly up to Norfolk to go and support them at times, and so having our AOC operation has helped us to stabilise the situation that we're in, and then expand out and help others as well as our own area.
Let's pick up on that point there, because it kind of segues a little bit to one of the challenges that anybody who operates any aircraft has these days, and that is the pilot shortage. I mean, we've alluded to it. A lot of pilots have hair colour that you and I have, and that that is a present danger for all operations. There is an impact now. The much alluded to shortage of pilots is no longer a vision on the horizon. It's absolutely here, and it's having an impact.
Yes, it really is. I mean, I'm very lucky. We've managed to recruit a group of pilots who are extremely experienced, but we've got people who are in their higher 50s, and we operate a multi-crew operation which allows them to fly through to 65. But we need to be thinking about succession planning, and we do have a group of younger pilots as well in their 30s and 40s. However, we need to think about how do we fill the funnel, and so we are going to be doing some work to encourage young people into the aviation industry.
It is one of those things, because it does seem to be one of the issues that's happening is, especially in the rotary space, that there is a high financial bar to enter into the industry. The services aren't producing pilots in the volumes that they have in the past, and that not just here in the UK but everywhere is the same. I was interesting thing. The United States Army trains about 1,500 helicopter pilots a year for now, but there's talk of that being cut by extreme amounts, and certainly flying hours. I was reading only this morning, their flying hours are being reduced and budget cuts and that. So again, that applies elsewhere, and there's competition.
Yes.
I have it on excellent authority that there are recruiters from large legacy airlines loitering at the gates of Fort Rucker, like a drug pusher in the schoolyard, offering, saying, come and work for us.
Yes.
And there's that challenge as well. So I guess that circles back with the AOC, being able to control the terms and conditions of the pilot group working here.
I think it's a really good point that you make, and absolutely what my chief pilot Andy Morehouse and I wanted to create for the pilots. And I've got a piloting background, as you know, Gideon. I used to be in the Navy, and then I flew with the police. But I want to generate an environment where they feel valued, that they're not just an asset, which can often happen when you're in a large airline or what have you. We want to give them good work-life balance. We want to reward them in a way, and I say reward, it doesn't mean just money. We want to reward them in a way that they're going to feel valued. And so when you can generate a good work-life balance, good reward, and a nice working environment, they operate our £11 million helicopters. We need to trust them and show that we trust them, and that's really important. For example, on the first week after we had our AOC, one of our pilots who was ready to become a captain but was still a first officer, and previously he would have had to wait for a slot to become available. We've promoted him to captain. And why? Well, that gives me, in my operation, greater flexibility to be able to mix and match the pilots. Because I've got 13 pilots in total, and we've got 2 bases, and we're flying twin pilots. So that puts quite a bit of pressure on the resources available. However, encouraging people by advancing them as quickly as possible, bringing young people into support, and giving people a succession plan. We've just spent money on one of our touring pilots to become a type rating instructor. And why is that? Well, we've got a fantastically experienced TRE in the organisation at the moment, Terry Body. But Terry's getting older, like everybody else. Terry might want to retire at some stage, and so we want to have an internal succession plan developed
to feed into that. Funnily enough, I met Terry just now on the apron, and he was giving me a walk around one of the 169s there. And it's interesting, again, we were talking about the training environment and unexpected challenges. We talked briefly on just the cost of losing a pilot to an organisation, and again, it by happenstance, it was a conversation we were having back at the RotorHub office a couple of weeks ago about what does it actually cost an operator to lose a pilot in terms of, well, they've got to get replace them. Well, the world is not awash with people with current type ratings, so a type rating, operational training, line training.
You're absolutely right, Gideon.
Yeah.
Yes, it's incredible. A pilot can give us 3 months' notice to leave if they want to, and I've been very open with our pilots in the same way that we want them to be happy here. If they want to move on and have another challenge, that's absolutely fine. Just please let us know. But they can choose to leave and have 3 months' notice. It's going to take us, I reckon, 7 to 9 months to replace them.
Yeah.
So we need to be making sure that we know where other pilots are who want to come and join us, and be filling the funnel. And then, without being silly about it, to treat them in a way that they want to stay. I think Richard Branson once said it. Train someone so that they can leave, and but treat them so they want to stay.
So they want to stick around.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting thing. It's not just. I mean, obviously, everybody likes more pay. No one would say no to more pay, but there are those important things like work-life balance, and in aviation, that whole thing of a stable roster. If you think about right up there on pilot whinge lists, is a roster that's all over the place. Or there's no life planning possible.
Yeah.
Knowing, well, what's my roster next month? Well, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Well, we're halfway through this month.
And that's so important. And actually, if you treat people right, then if you do suddenly present them with a short notice change, as long as it's within the regulations, then quite often they will want to support you.
Yeah.
And some of the value that I think the pilots find of being here, one is the additional training that we're giving them, but two is also to be involved with the charity, and actually help with the fundraising. When we do a shop opening, we'll send one of the pilots along to be part of that. Justin Wells, one of our pilots, was at a dance competition that we run, which is called Strictly Air Ambulance, and it's a great fundraising event. But it's so important to make sure that we've got enough money to run the operation and to keep the charity going for the longer term.
I mean, that's the key point, isn't it? So the old saying, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. And it's that thing of keeping those funds coming, especially in an environment where there is no tap. The tap is the local population, yeah. and relying on those people and keeping to the front of their minds the importance of the service to them and their neighbours and their family and
no, absolutely. And it's been a real privilege. It's been a really tough year for the whole team getting the AOC over the line, but it's been a real privilege to be able to be involved, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And now, as I said earlier to you, we've getting the AOC is a little bit like taking off, and we're now in the climb with the seatbelt sign still on, and we're confident that we're going to be getting up to cruise speed before too long, and really establish the operation in the area. I'm very excited about the future.
Bill Long, we have been beaten by the clock, and so unfortunately we got to wrap it there, which is always a strain. We could talk for hours, I'm sure, but very much appreciate you spending the time on what is, after all, a very busy day for all of you here at Essex Hertfordshire Air Ambulance. lots of excitement, big celebrations later even. They might even let rusty old journalists hang around for a little bit of that, and crews out doing the main deal out the window as well. So Bill, thanks again for spending the time with us today.
Thank you, Gideon.
Much appreciated.
I really enjoyed it, and you may have heard the hail hitting the window.
The hail hitting the window.
The crew are out in at the moment.
And the crew are out in it. I was looking out of the window at the, there's an awful lot of chains of CBs out there. That has been another edition of the RotorHub International Podcast. Join us again next time when we'll be talking everything vertical aviation.